Coogs house. The Houston Cougars just made a big splash by making a big time offer to a top 3 player in the nation.
You are Locked On Coogs, your daily podcast on the Houston Cougars, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Coogs, the daily podcast about your Houston Cougars. I'm your host, Houston-born teacher and coach. And whether you're a Houston Cougar fan or just a hater that came to step by, thank you for making Locked On Cougs your first listen of the day. Be sure to make the first listen each and every day for the everydayers out there. If you want to join the conversation but you don't know what to say, tell us. This is, University of Houston's a big city school. What's your favorite small town barbecue joint? We're talking about a small town a little bit later in the first segment. Today's show is brought to you by Game Time. Best place to get last tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. But we got more on that later. I want to talk some about softball. Season's over. We got to wrap that up at the end of the show. I do want to talk about some new representation between the Trump White House and the Big 12 and how that all clicks together. Trust me, it'll make sense in a second. But first and foremost, Houston made a big-time splash in the class of 2026 in terms of basketball recruiting by offering Christian Collins. Christian Collins is 6'8", 6'9", depending on what you're looking at. Long-armed perimeter player. Goes to St. John's Bosco in California. Number 1 forward in the nation. 5-star kid, presently has offers from Kentucky, Duke, and Houston. Also has visits with Texas and Alabama scheduled for the summer. It looks like Houston may get in on that train as well. Christian Collins is like I said, a California kid. His dad and aunt were both McDonald's All-Americans in the same year. That's D'Angelo Collins and Alexis Kendricks, both McDonald's All-Americans in 2003, I believe, which makes me feel a little bit old, but really big time player here. He's 6'8", 6'9-ish, long arms, long wingspan, and he's been working on the perimeter aspects of his game. Works with high-end, high-level guard skill trainers in California, and I think that kind of has a almost negative connotation for a guy that size. But then you put on the game tape for Christian Collins, and he does the physical back you down kind of stuff when he gets smaller guys on him. He has the perimeter game. He can shoot. He can run. He's really athletic as far as being able to take off from a long way away and punch the ball home. Really, really impressive kid. And I think what makes him feel like a Houston Cougar is that he's got this massive rise in the last 6 months. He was unranked the summer going into his junior season. He's presently, as we mentioned at the top, a top 3 player in the class of 2026 going into the summer before his senior season. That's 1 high school season worth of games, and he moved up from unranked to a consensus 5-star. No one has him outside of their top 5 in the class of 2026, right? Fun facts here. He's a childhood actor, did some commercial kind of work and that kind of stuff. Coaches describe him as a guy that kind of lights up the room. He's a happy kid, great smile, very, outspoken, and like he's just kind of a fun energy to be around. But man, when you watch him on the basketball court, it is energy. I don't think guarding him looks very fun. He's really, really impressive. Again, puts his back to the basket on smaller defenders, faces up out on the three-point line with bigger ones. I don't know how you cover this kid one-on-one. His massive rise feels entirely like notoriety. Like he went to a smaller high school before St. John's Bosco. The bigger program gave him more limelight. Suddenly, he's a consensus top player, right? And that feels a lot like Chris Sinak. Chris Sinak, the 2025 5-star center / power forward coming to Houston, had a very similar deal from Louisiana. He was not the highest ranked guy early on in his high school career and finished it out pretty highly ranked, obviously. Feels similar to me in that way. Very traditional Houston story. I feel like you find a lot of these guys that Houston finds that are, end up being discovered later, but Houston's in on them early. It sounds like Houston and Christian Collins had been in contact as this rise and before this rise was necessarily happening, but the offer came on Wednesday May 7th officially. Now, he's the kind of kid that will probably take as long as he can to commit. He's going to get a bunch of offers. He's going to command large NIL checks and all of that. But he's got some things to his game, the long wingspan, the wanting to dunk a lot of things, the versatility, and just this like grinded out gym rat attitude about basketball that make me feel like he's very Houston Cougarish, especially when you're looking at like Houston will probably have, I think at least one of the freshmen coming in will be a one and done, need to replace them on that high end recruits. And as we're kind of seeing Houston move slightly into that game, getting the toes wet in that kind of basketball, the way you replace those guys is by bringing in another one, right? And so big time offer here. We'll see what the commitment is like. We'll be tracking it as we go. In the class of 2026, I've been hearing that Junior County, so Houston's getting in the 2025 class has signed Isaiah Harwell for next season, a consensus top 15 player. Some people have the number one shooting guard in the class. Right. The other perimeter scorer on that Wasatch Academy team is Junior County. He's not as big as Isaiah, but does put up a lot of the same kind of stats. Big time scorer, shooter, finisher on the rim. Junior County's dad was a college defensive back at the University of Utah. He plays for Utah Prospects. He goes to Wasatch Academy. He's a Utah guy, statewide through and through. But I'm hearing Houston's making some good inroads and getting connected with the county kid. I'm not going to lie to you. I think Isaiah Harwell coming to Houston helps that a lot. The two had great chemistry when you watch video, frankly, as I'm watching video for Isaiah Harwell to see what he's going to look like in Houston Cougar uniform. You can't avoid seeing Junior County on the floor at the same time. For my money, I do think Isaiah Harwell is better, but that doesn't mean it's any big knock on Junior County. He's a tremendous scorer of the basketball. And frankly, I want to see the ball in his hands more as a senior next year without Isaiah around. You can see a similar kind of rise that we keep talking about Houston Cougar guys get as he has the ball in his hands more, right? And so got to keep an eye on there. Again, I'm hearing his name a lot inside of things. Still sounds like they're doing pretty well with recruiting Caleb Holt, another consensus top 5 guy. Top 10, I think the lowest I've seen him ranked is 7th on one board in the 2026 class. Caleb Holt's the Alabama kid that was initially going to come visit Houston in person, but then Sampson want to visit him at his high school. Sounds like they do have a visit scheduled for him to come through Houston. Holt has also already been to campus once back during his sophomore year. Big time athlete out of that too. Another 6'5" perimeter guy. Houston's looking to get bigger and better, man. The other big offer on the table is actually 2027 on Wednesday. Houston offered David. I'm going to try my best with his last name because I haven't heard it pronounced the same way twice in a row. Baliraine. David Baliraine is from Hallsville, Texas, which is a small town between Longview and Marshall. That's that small town thing I said we'd open with at the start. I'm looking for a full game video of Hallsville. It's not a very big program, certainly not as big as Longview or anything like that. But the clips you watch this guy play at, I mean, he's making tremendous freak athletic plays. Listed at 6'8", he looks bigger than that to me. That could be a discrepancy in the guys he's playing against, I guess, but looks really, really big. He's the kind of guy that's going to be in Hallsville maybe his junior season as well, depending how his AAU summer goes. He'll probably end up at a bigger program somewhere his senior of high school, just because those big programs aren't going to let a talent like that sit in Hallsville, Texas, right? And that's no knock on Hallsville, Texas. That's not my small town, but I love small town Texas across a lot of different parts of the state. But I do feel like he's going to end up in some city, whether that's somehow manages to find his way moved into Duncanville and DFW, or they come down and they play at like, I don't know, one of the high-end private schools in Houston that puts out good basketball players or whatever, or the Baylor Episcopal kind of things, or whatever the case may be. I just feel like Baliraine is going to end up somewhere like that. I could also see him at the academies, the Lynx, Link Academy, Wasatch, something like that, just to get his game more on display. But Houston is in early on at that one. 2027 means he's wrapping up his sophomore year of high school as we talk to you right now. The clips again look like he's more than just an unranked 2027 kid. Admittedly, there aren't as many ranked 2027 kids. I think the rankings go through mostly 75. No one has gone a whole lot deeper than that. But it does feel like Houston may be getting in on the boat early there. And basketball recruiting is fun, man. once you've built this program, kids want to be a part of it, and it's fun to see the ball rolling. Can't not give credit to, double negative there. Got to give credit to Landon Gosling and the NIL work that basketball is doing to stay at a level that is nationally competitive. Obviously, it helps that this program was being established before NIL became a real deal. Having all of that resource there, it's not that they're necessarily giving every 5-star kid the exact same dollar amount that they're going to get at the previous blue blood iteration or generation of college basketball, but they're able to keep competitive enough that the other benefits of Houston outweigh the difference, right? And that's what you're seeing across the board here when kids are interested in Houston, excited about Houston offers and stuff like that. It's just a whole different ball game than it used to be. I want to talk more about a different ball game and NIL and some I don't mean to say like apolitical, but some political kind of stuff going on with NIL and how the Big 12 is getting involved and trying to make sense of this whole thing. And as we get to that, anyway, we're going to get to that in a second. Before we get to that, today's show is brought to you by Game Time. That is the best place to get last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. And there are NBA playoff games happening. Admittedly, the Rockets are out, but every bucket and defensive stop, every moment feels huge. I feel like this has been like the greatest play, except for Houston being out, I guess, but just from entertainment value, the greatest playoffs like ever. And you can get in on the action with last minute deals, saving you up to 60% at Game Time. As tip-off gets closer, those prices go down, all in pricing, no surprises. You know exactly what you're going to pay at the end. Take the guess we're going to buy tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code Locked On College for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code Locked On College, LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices, guaranteed. Program managers Locked On Coogs here. And I'm looking at a story about NIL and politics and still trying to make sense of it. But I think Houston and the Big 12 may be getting a big benefit here as Cody Campbell will be joining a commission put forth by President Trump to try and help resolve some NIL issues. So this goes back to, I guess, Trump spoke at Alabama. It looked like commencement, but didn't look like a very big commencement. So it might have been some school within Alabama. But anyway, Trump spoke. He was introduced by Nick Saban. Nick did some off-the-cuff comment about needing his help with NIL and fixing that issue. And within a couple of days, it sounds like that is going to be an actual committee that Saban's going to have something to do with. Saban, obviously, Alabama diehard, SEC homer. Hard to get him off of that mindset. And the guy they're adding in to the commission that's the next big name is Cody Campbell. Now, Cody Campbell's not a Houston guy, but he's a Texas Tech guy. Texas Tech Board of Regents, co-chair of the College Sports Commission with Nick Saban. He did play offensive line for Texas Tech and then played for the Indianapolis Colts. But this guy's biggest claim to fame is oil money. He sold his energy company for $4 billion and then founded the Texas Tech NIL Collective, the Matador Club. That's all this oil money. We talk about tech spending and the transfer portal. That's where the money is coming from, right? Anyway, he sees NIL very front-facing with NIL. He's very much involved with NIL. He also, for what it's worth, has been appointed by Governor Abbott to higher education coordinating boards and stuff like that across Texas. That is to say that he's had some experience on these kinds of boards before. He's a Panhandle guy. He's a state of Texas guy, et cetera, right? That's all fine and dandy if you're a Tech fan. How does this impact Houston and the Big 12? I think it's really easy for these kinds of conversations to forget about places like the Big 12. We mentioned Nick Saban's got a big SEC bias. We hear a lot about Michigan alumni and stuff like that flying into these kinds of things and being involved in these kinds of things. You don't often hear about Big 12 alumni being involved in these kinds of things. Now, obviously, a guy that has $4 billion in oil money is not going to have the same kind of perspective as someone that's seeing Houston go from the American to the Big 12 and kind of jump that is and trying to get into this big dollar sports game, right? But having the Big 12 represented, I think, is really, really important in these conversations because otherwise it would feel even more so like you're having this closed doors SEC Big Ten conversation where they're going to create their own league and leave the rest of this out, right? Now, I also think that it's interesting to see how this plays out because I think everyone's kind of assuming they're going to find some ways to control NIL. NIL at its core is supposed to be about selling name, image, and likeness. It's supposed to be like almost glorified like sponsorship or something like that, right? And it's not supposed to have been pay for play, but it's functionally always been pay for play. And the House settlement is looming. It continues to loom over all of this. But NIL and the House settlement do not necessarily go together. NIL money is not coming from the university, so the House settlement will be impact money coming from the university. But NIL stuff does not, and so theoretically, Saban, now Cody, Campbell, and others will be looking to work with Congress on how to fix the issues of the wild, wild west here. Simultaneously, I should point out that in past legislation or past times that these issues have come up to Congress, there have been lots of lobbyists arguing to not call college athletes employees in the legislation because the difficulty that would bring. Not using the word employees in the quickest way possible kind of limit what kinds of things a congressional meeting can do to NIL, right? Because it's not necessarily the same kind of, in the literal sense, workplace without the employee tag, right? And so I'm still diving into exactly what all they even can do. This is a really new story. It's really still evolving. And as it changes, we'll be following it here at Locked On Cougs because it's going to impact the Houston Cougars down the line. Here's a thing that I feel fairly confident in as well, though. Whatever this committee, the next committee, the one after that, whatever they put forward, whatever rules they put forward, trying to cap NIL, and you got to turn in your receipts, and you got to make sure you're under this dollar amount, or you got to turn in your receipts. You got to make sure that the guys are doing exactly what they're supposed to do in terms of fulfilling their half of the sponsorship, and you got to turn in your receipts, and you only get the NIL money if you stay at the school, and yada yada yada, right? I think the thing we're really finding out about college sports, committees or no committees, is that it's kind of always been the wild, wild west. It might have not been this wild, but when there was a salary cap of literally zero, there were people skirting the rules, finding ways around. I mean, what's the Eric Dickerson thing was the Pontiac, right? Like, people have been finding ways to avoid this. People have served real life jail time because of IRS issues, paying college players when they weren't allowed to. I am not letting myself get down this rabbit hole where I think like, oh yeah, putting a salary cap on is going to fix all the things, because when the salary cap was zero, it didn't fix all the things. I don't know what number you're going to put on it that makes it fix now, right? And so I do think it's interesting to hear this conversation happen and see what these legislators and what this committee thinks they can put together. And again, I think it's important that the state of Texas and a Big 12 school from the state of Texas are working on this, right? It's not SEC dollars. It's a lot of money. Tech is not a broke program or anything like that by any stretch, but it's not the blue blood, big dollar programs that you think of, right? And so I do want to know where this goes. I do think it's be interesting as a thought experiment to see what they think they can and can't accomplish. I just, in all reality, don't know how much really changes. This feels like a toothpaste out the tube. This feels like an opening of Pandora's box. And it also feels like they just set the curtain on fire. They didn't pull the curtain back. They set it on fire. Now the curtain's gone. And now we see what college sports kind of was for a long, long time. Yes, in the 80s, players across the Southwest Conference, players across the Southeast Conference, players across the Big Ten, the Pac-10 were getting paid under the table. It's a fact of life. Happened in the 90s, happened in the 2000s, happened in the 2010s. Now the dollar amounts are much bigger, and the dollar amounts are up front. And the transfer rules are, you can leave somewhere every 3 months. And frankly, we saw a situation between, was it Miami and Wisconsin, where a kid just said, fine, if you're going to tell me I can't transfer, I'm just going to unenroll and re-enroll and pay my tuition with my NIL money. What can you do? The kid's just changing schools, and normal students are allowed to change schools. And so without that employee tag, which has been something Congress seems to not want to put on this for a bunch of other reasons. I don't know how it ever actually has any real significant change, but I'm interested, and so I'll be following it here each and every day as more enrolls, or more unfolds. That's the word. But before we get to any of that, before any of that unfolds, one thing that has completely been unfolded, segue, is the Houston Cougar softball season, with some major changes feeling very much on the horizon. Want to get that in 1 second, but today's episode is brought to you by our buddies over at Amazon Fire Stick TV. Did you know that Fire TV is also an Xbox where you can play the college football video game on it? It turns your TV into a gaming entertainment hub with the Fire Stick TV 4K devices. No console required. Just get your paired controller, subscribe or sign in to your Xbox Game Pass. Ultimate EA Play is included in that. You're ready to play right away. Dive into hundreds of premium titles like that college football 2025, 2026. It's going to be coming out soon, I assume. Call of Duty, Black Ops, whatever the game you like to play is. Affordable and portable gaming, high quality Xbox games at a fraction of the cost. If you already have a console, Fire Stick TV device is more affordable and easier travel component for that as well. I'm not a gigantic gamer. I do like being able to like pick up and take with when we're like on the road to the basketball tournament I'm coaching, however. And the kids, frankly, can like load up and all play and have fun in the hotel. And it's frankly a lot easier for me as a coach to know, okay, they got their Fire Stick, they're playing games, everyone's safe. Right? Hosting no gaming. If you like are hosting something like that, you don't have any gaming experience or you're not a gamer yourself, it has a bunch of other entertainment options as well. So make sure you're paying attention to all of that. Head to amazon.com/Fire TV Locked On to get started. The Xbox Game Pass, Ultimate Subscription, and compatible controller are required for those features. Available on select devices, including Fire Stick TV, Fire Stick TV 4K Max, and Fire TV Cube. Parker Ainsworth, Locked On Coogs here, and we've been hinting at Diamond Sports for a while. We've been talking about this a little bit, and the softball season officially came to a close on Wednesday night. Houston played BYU in a 6-11 matchup in the first round of the Big 12 tournament. Houston showed up as an 11 seed, kind of felt like almost by default. It's not been a great season, and they still had chances in this one. In the third inning, they left 2 on base with chances to score in that inning. BYU, which was 11th, and I didn't know this till the telecast, 11th in Division I softball and home runs hit this season, hit 77 of them throughout the year, had a 2-run shot in the bottom of that third inning, and then had another 2-run shot in the fifth inning, or in the sixth inning, I'm sorry. In the fifth inning, Houston had 2 on base and hit one to the warning track before ultimately getting out of the inning with no runs. Just 2 Coug hits in this one, a lot of walks, so I guess you could talk about good play discipline there or whatever. And Houston is young. I don't mean to dismiss that, and I really don't want to poo-poo on the women that play for the team or anything like that. It did not look like a low-effort kind of thing or anything like that to me. But Houston ends the season at 22-25, 4-18 in the Big 12 Conference. And Valisi, her contract ends, softball coach's contract ends at the end of July, if I'm not mistaken. This summer. Contract ends. Had talks of extensions of the current contract she's under, and I guess at this point, you just wait till then to move on with the program. I want to reiterate that we've also talked with Scott and Holman on this podcast, but they've talked about it ad nauseum on their own podcast too. Dusty, Sam, Rob, those guys have talked a lot about the off the field cultural problems that the program has had. I don't want to get too much bogged down in that as we talk about the actual games, but it does feel like a kind of hostile environment. And as a assistant high school basketball coach, which I know is nothing like the Division I athletics that these women are playing in, but I will say that those kind of cultural flaws can show up on the playing surface a lot. And I don't want to discredit the fact that those tie in together here or anything quite like that. We'll see where the program goes next. We'll see how quickly they move on. I imagine what you're going to see from athletic director Eddie Nunez, if the women's basketball program is any indicator, what they're going to do is, like they did with Ron Huey, is tell you ahead of time, hey, we're not going to renew this contract. We're not going to officially make a move till that contract is over, because we want to make sure that that we don't violate or anything like that. But we're going to let the world know we're not renewing it very shortly there, unless you resign. Then very shortly thereafter, the coach will resign, just like Huey did, right? And while it's hard to root for people to get fired or lose their jobs, we're not typically one to do that. The combination of poor performance on the field and questionable things happening off of it makes this feel like an easy decision. That makes it feel like a decision that probably should have gotten made before. It just does. Now, baseball heads into the weekend. We'll talk some more about that on Friday's episode, with some important games for their own Big 12 tournament hopes. It feels like they have to have a big Big 12 tournament for any sort of, that's kind of like the pinnacle of the season right now. It looks like for that program as well. And so I don't want to liken the two, because the off-the-field stuff I don't think ties over or crosses over. The hostility, the threats of violence, those kinds of things. But I do want to point out that both programs kind of had rough springs. Softball much more so in terms of wins and losses, but both programs have kind of had rough springs. And track and field is doing the good track and field things. Lewis runs a great program, obviously. But Diamond Sports struggling. And so as more news comes out on that, or as more news comes out on, frankly, anything, the NIL issues, basketball recruiting, we have some football recruiting stuff I want to talk about, as far as like prospects getting offers in the 2026 class, 2027 classes. We'll talk some more about that on Friday, I believe. Unless more news pops up with any of these kinds of things. The goal is to talk with those kinds of guys on Friday, in Friday's episode going into the weekend. So hit subscribe. Make sure you're here every single day, like the everydayer I know you want to be. We're here talking all things Houston Cougars all the time. If you want to look into a second listen of the day, I'm recommending Locked On College Basketball. I think they're doing a great job of tackling the offseason basketball stuff across the entire college landscape. That includes guys going to the NBA draft or not. That includes people transferring around the conferences. That includes all kinds of things with matchups being set for non-conferences next season, stuff like that. So check out Andy, Isaac, and the occasional Leaf Tulane over there. Locked On Coogs is proud member of Locked On Podcast Network, because of shows like that. It means your team each and every day. Go Coogs.